We gotta do it again. Because the camera's on me for some reason. I'm like, you're not supposed to be on me. I'm turning around. Let's try it again. Perfect. We are here today celebrating women, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the business community. And today with the Roundtable audience, look at these smiling faces here, we're going to have a great time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for showing up. To our friends who are going to be chiming in later on in the live broadcast, I really appreciate you. For those of you who are here in the listening audience, you can go ahead and tune in now. Okay, so diversity, equity, inclusion. What does this mean to us? And what does it mean to us in our networking? How do we make it happen? How do we create more opportunities? And how do we use this? Any ideas?
First, you're friendly and outgoing to someone that's like or not like you.
Explain. What do you mean?
Well, someone like me, myself. I'm very involved in my church.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my best friends is an atheist.
Right.
Well, we're very good friends and do a lot of things together. And it's like we find that we have a lot in common. So what do you do that others might want to get involved in?
Awesome. Any other ideas?
Well, the other thing is if you're a whole bunch of ducks all in a duck row, it's kind of hard to break out of that mold and talk to the swan or the goose or any other aspects of just living in the world. You're kind of secluding yourself to just being a duck.
Awesome. We got a nice healthy mixture of ladies in the room today, which is kind of rare for us, but we're celebrating them specifically today. Ladies, you have any thoughts about diversity? Any thoughts about equity, how it affects you, how should it affect others?
I think mainly we have to encourage others, whether they be male, female, or non-gender, to think outside of the box and to imagine that they can have, be, or do anything they want to do. That they don't have to be stuck in the paradigm that others have placed them in with their thoughts, their opinions, their vision of what they should do, but they should look from within and know that they are to be included in whatever they dream that's outside of the norm that they're in. That's how we can include everyone and we can really promote diversity. It starts within that person knowing that there's something out there for them that's better than where they are right now today.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about breaking those concepts down, because they're not the same thing, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion are not the same thing. And I know sometimes it's easy for us to think of them like, oh, that's all a big mumbo jumbo, kind of blah, 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 blah. But they're actually really different concepts. You know, diversity itself is a little different. What does it mean? What do you think it means? Who has an idea what they think diversity actually is?
I think it means different.
Right.
I mean, I think that's really at the bottom that it means different. So I think that that's what a lot of people have just talked about is working or, being in a situation where everyone's different that you work with or that you want to bring into your business or help someone with their business. But everyone's different.
Right.
Which everyone is different.
Certainly.
That is the bottom line. And I think as soon as we realize, which it took me a long time to realize, that everyone doesn't, necessarily react to things the way I do. But that's okay. That's wonderful. And so I think to see the beauty in that person or what they can bring to the table or what they have to offer, I think that's where it all starts. And as soon as we realize that, the better off we're all going to be.
I totally agree on that. How about equity? What is equity? I know I'm an economics guy. I studied economics. And when I think of equity, I tend to think of money. But is that what we're talking about here?
I would say equity is finding value, and that's value in whoever you're with and whatever they do. I would say our financial planners over here would tell us that there's diversity as you diversify in your portfolio. You're going to diversify. You diversify in your friends. You diversify in your business. I tell my clients, I'm in residential mortgage. I tell my clients, you need something, you come to me because I have people. I've got a large list of people that do about anything and everything that you need.
Right.
So come, let's all work together to create that diversity and have equity in the value of each other.
Isn't equity a lot like ownership?
Yes.
But can you own relationship?
I think you can be responsible
Mm-hmm.
for your relationship with other people,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't necessarily think you own it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I happen to be literally an honorary member of multiple black communities, some Indian, as in India communities and so forth.
Wait a minute, you don't look Indian to me.
This is
You might get passed for black, but I don't.
only when I talk. But the point being, no matter what group I'm with, whether they're drug addicts or heads of boards of directors, I treat people with respect equally, and I apply the same game rules to each. And for that reason, I am respected and accepted back. I'm the beneficiary, though, because I learned and enriched my life through the experiences and differences among all these different kinds of people.
Right.
2 cents.
In my research, when I looked at when we started to study these ideas, we found that equity a lot is about power. It is about power to make decisions. It's about power to have authority. It's about the power to take the responsibility for what happens. And that's an important aspect of development. How do you feel when you don't have power, when you don't have control, when you don't have the ability to even make a difference?
Well, equity is the balance between being fair and impartial. And so when you talk about power being the center, of course I'm a lawyer, everything has to be around the scale or justice. But if you put power in the middle of the scales of justice and you put fairness and impartiality in between, it could make for a better world for everyone.
That's good lawyer speak. that's good.
Space in social media.
That is good lawyer speak. It's a difficult conversation about power and balance and fairness and equity, because quite reasonably, power is something that in order to gain, you either somebody has to give it to you, or you have to take it. Right? Does anybody want stuff taken from them?
No.
So, what would make us share our power? What kind of character do we have to have?
You have to be okay with diversity.
Okay.
I think consciously have to have a conversation with yourself and ask yourself, am I okay with diversity? Because people are people. We will do stupid things.
Yes.
We will offend people. We will have difference of opinions. And no matter how bad it gets, sometimes people are going to think the way they're going to think. So if you're going to deal with diversity and you want ownership or equity in that relationship with that group of people you do business with, because people will want to take ownership of that, and they should rightfully show what they invest in, but you have to be okay with diversity.
I think so. But that gets me to the third part of our discussion. Inclusion. Do we include people that don't have power? Should we? Should we do it on purpose? Is it difficult? I see some noodles getting cooked over there.
I don't see inclusion why it should be inclusive. Like Rudolph, the reindeer, he was excluded from playing in the reindeer games.
Right.
But yet he had this potential that once the group was aware of, they should never have excluded him.
Yes. You hit it right on the button. Once the group was aware that Rudolph brought something special to the table, then they felt okay with including him. But in order for that awareness to happen, there has to be a level of communication in order for people to see and understand and be with each other, for each other. And before that can happen, like Vince said here, you have to value diversity. You have to really think about it. How do you value diversity? So in our training, we asked a couple questions. Why should you think about others? How should you think about others? When should you think about others? And what others should you think about? I got a feeling that if we all wrestle with these questions, we'll start to see reasons why we should include each other. Why we should share what we have with each other. And why we should respect and honor each other. Because all of us are entrepreneurs. Quite frankly, we're a bunch of weirdos. Right? You know, how many times a day do you deal with friends and family and associates going, why don't you just get a real job? You know, why don't you just do something normal for a change? Why do you always have to create something? Why do you always have to be out there on the edge? Why do you always have to be taking the risks that no one reasonable would take? Isn't that true? Anybody have to deal with that? Right? Is it just me? So we're often the odd duck. I know that. I'll go to Thanksgiving dinner with some of you all, and I'm going to experience the same thing I experienced at my Thanksgiving dinner. Are you still doing that thing again? Really? Okay.
Sounds familiar.
All right. You're not asking for money, are you? So think about that. I said, why don't you get a real job? So, you know, there's diversity and equity across, and the inclusion across socio-economic strata, all kinds of places we can look for it. But the key is, I think, to be able to identify and recognize talent, no matter what the outside rapper is. And that's difficult. Anybody ever dealt with people with language barriers? Who, you know, English wasn't their first language, or they weren't too sure how to express themselves? I can imagine it could be frustrating, right? But behind that accent, or that funny way of dress, could be a genius. In our training, Champions by Design, we talk about something called native genius. And it's so funny that, you know, we have an authentic Native American here today. We talk about native genius. That doesn't happen just because we were born with it in a class. That just happens because you were born with it as a person. Who brought up the concept of fairness? I think it was over here. We started talking about fairness. Is fair equal? Is equality and fairness the same thing? Any thoughts on that? If I treat everybody the same, am I being fair?
No.
Who said no? Why?
I said no, because you can't treat everybody equally. You just can't. It's impossible. If you try to treat everybody equally, you're actually going to exclude other people when you try. It's just the way, unfortunately, the system we have works.
Okay.
I think if you approach it from the servant's heart, it solves the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a servant's heart and you're treating everyone as if they have a servant's heart, then equality no longer becomes an issue, because you are truly doing unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
You would not want to hurt yourself. You wouldn't want to do anything to yourself that would jeopardize your positioning of power and your standing.
Right. Cool.
As a mom, I've experienced this with my kids, and everyone always points the finger at the other one, saying that you like her more, or you know, they get more stuff. And so I think that when you go to punish them or do something like that, I would try to explain to my daughter, like, if I take your crayons away so you can't draw, you hate that. If I took your brother's crayons away, he wouldn't care. It's you have to find what is important to each individual person, and then use that either, you know, for a reward or, you know, to take away from that. So I think you have to find and listen to each person individually.
So we have to pay attention to everyone? Individually?
Everybody.
Really?
There's a difference.
How on earth do we actually have capacity for that? I mean, really? Can we be Florence Nightingale? Just love everybody the same all the time?
You have to learn to like people.
Really?
Truly, you have to have I mentioned this earlier, you have to have a conversation with yourself at some point when you decide who you want to become and be, emulate it. And you have that hard conversation. And you really have to learn to love people and like people.
What if you're an introvert like me and you're not feeling people, really?
Honestly, I think
I'm happy behind the camera. I'm good.
you didn't say you didn't learn to like people, but you have to love people and like what you do. It takes sincere interest and a conscious effort to really listen. and really leverage that for the relationship for a good win-win.
Outstanding. Yes.
It's like you're being offended or being talked down to, you reply back with respect to show your true character.
Mm-hmm.
So like you might not have to love this person, but you learn from this person.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to accept the rudeness, comments, whatnot, but you can learn from it and just show respect back to show your true character. So you might not love this person.
Right.
So you might not love everybody all the time.
Fantastic. Great ideas. So what we've come up with is basically listening is the key. Really paying attention to people is the key to figuring out, you're on film, to figuring out, this whole thing. How do we play together? How do we create strengthened communities? How do we learn from each other and learn from our differences? It's really true. In order to be great, we have to understand that all the marbles don't exist in our bag. And other people might have some pretty shiny marbles that might be useful for us. So I thank you for your conversation today. It's been amazing. And we're going to close up with the wonderful time we had. For those of us in the listening audience, I appreciate you. Thank you so very much. Mike, thanks for joining us. And we are out.